critical thinking. So I want you to imagine a national leader, like the president of a country, and suddenly there's explosions outside, and her assistant comes in and says, "Our nation is under attack." And the president says, "Well, immediately get our army going, and they need to get out there and they need to immediately attack back. Whoever is attacking us, they need to go directly after that person. We need to start launching at our enemies. We need to do this right away." Um, and the assistant says, "Okay, yeah, I mean, we don't necessarily know exactly who this is." And the president's like, "We don't have time to figure out who this is. We need to act right now, right away. We need to figure out what the problem is, and we need to just start attacking our enemies. So just start getting the nukes ready, getting the bombs going so that we can defend our nation by launching a counterattack." Okay. Now, imagine the same scenario. A president sitting behind her desk, and um, there's an explosion outside. Her assistant comes in. "Our nation is under attack." The president goes, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I am not prepared for this." And she goes and hides under her desk. She's like, "Close the blinds, quickly, hide." And the assistant says, "Do you want me to do anything to like prepare the nation or whatever?" And she's like, "No, no, 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 no. Just whatever they want from us. Just tell whatever our enemies want. We'll do it. We'll do anything. We have to surrender because we need to survive." So what do you think about the ways that these presidents responded in these two situations? I'd like you to compare a third scenario. In the third scenario, the president's sitting behind her desk and there's an explosion outside. And then her assistant comes in and says, "President, the nation is under attack." And the president says, "Okay, immediately get in my generals, all my advisors into the war room. And I need all the information they have. And we need to launch investigations. We need to gather all necessary data. I need to find out what we have on hand in order to be able to fight back. And I need to find out what our options are in terms of surrendering." And then she has everyone gather together. She has them map out on the board what would happen if they surrendered, what would be the pros and cons of surrendering, and what would be the pros and cons of fighting back. Did you notice the difference in these scenarios? Which of the three scenarios do you think reflects critical thinking skills? If you have this book, these scenarios come from chapter 8 of this book. I'm sorry, chapter 9. Chapter 9 of this book under critical thinking. The book's called Mind by Roman Zanoni. If you have a copy, you can follow along with us. You're not required to have a copy, but if you're interested in it, it's on Amazon. So, which of these, number one, number two, number three, reflects critical thinking skills? If you thought the third one, you're absolutely correct, but why? Why didn't the first one show critical thinking? In the first situation, she said she was going to fight back. What's wrong with fighting back? What's wrong with fighting back? In the second one, she said she was going to surrender. Okay, so what's wrong with surrendering? What's wrong with that? She's going to save a lot of lives. Correct. She didn't take the time to stop and think. Correct. She's being too reactive. Correct. She didn't consider her options. Correct. A few seconds make a difference. No thoughtfulness, no observance, no patience. Correct. That is the difference between critical thinking and just following the feelings. In option number one, she went with fight response. That's trauma response. It's adaptive, but she didn't take the time to use critical thinking. In option number two, she went with fawn response to surrender. It's adaptive. Again, it could result in a saving of lives, but she didn't take the time to consider the data. So what is critical thinking? Critical thinking is where you take time to analyze the data, the information. You take time to gather as much information as is possible. And then you weigh out what your decision will be based on gathering all of the information. That's critical thinking. You're going to look at different sides of an argument. Remember in the critical thinking example, she said she was going to have mapped out on the board if she surrendered versus if she fought. And then she was going to weigh out which option would be best based on examining the pros and cons of each option. That is critical thinking. People who don't understand critical thinking don't understand that there's no such thing as a right and wrong decision. Put that in your notes. People who don't understand critical thinking don't understand there's no such thing as a right and wrong decision. People get caught in extreme thinking as a result of being trauma survivors. Because when you are a baby, when you're a toddler, everything is in extreme: hot, cold, right, wrong, yes, no, good, bad, right? And so you might even see a toddler express this to their parent, like, you're a bad mommy or you're a bad dad. And they'll say that because they were disciplined or they didn't get something they wanted. An overreaction, right? To just not getting a dessert or to get to eat more cookies and then you call your parent bad. It doesn't make them a bad parent. But why does a toddler react this way? Because a toddler level thinking is good, bad, right, wrong. And a lot of times they're reacting based on their feelings. They don't have developed critical thinking skills. Developed critical thinking skills, hopefully, as an adolescent, the adolescent will be able to say, I don't agree with what my parent has decided, but I can analyze, I can surmise based on the data that the parent does love me and they are good in some ways. And even though I don't agree with their decision of not letting me have the extra cookies, I can understand how, from their perspective, they may feel like that is good for me, that they love me. And so now I'm able to analyze the nuance, right? I'm able to see they aren't all bad. They aren't perfect. I can disagree while seeing their viewpoint. That is critical thinking skills. The ability to see both sides of an argument simultaneously. I need everyone in this course to understand how to do this. You must be able to see both sides of every argument for every situation and every decision simultaneously. In fact, you may find that there's actually sometimes three sides to an argument. And so we're going to develop those skills. Does that make sense? What many trauma survivors are stuck in is extreme thinking, dichotomous thinking. What do those things mean? Extreme thinking, black and white, dichotomous thinking. That's good, bad, right, wrong, very clear, distinct, opaque, obtuse. Everything has to be very simple. We are being attacked, so we fight. My boyfriend did something I didn't like, so we break up and I never speak to him again. My therapist missed our appointment, so I cannot reschedule. I will never work with him again. This is extreme thinking, black and white thinking, dichotomous thinking. That's what that is. So as we mature, then we learn nuance. If you didn't learn nuance, it may be because you got stuck in the toddler stage of thinking because you were busy trying to survive growing up. So you didn't have time to process nuance. And also, you may have had emotionally immature parents who didn't teach you to process nuance. So can you imagine if you're trying to just survive in your household? You don't have time to say, well, sometimes they're good, they're bad, da, 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 let me, and they love me and some of that. You can't process that. You're just like, what do I have to do to survive? I either have to scream and shout, I have to fight in this household to survive, or I have to fawn and just whatever they want, whatever everyone else wants, or I got to just freeze and just zone out, or I got to just run away. And that was your childhood. That may explain why you didn't have time to really be able to process very strong critical thinking skills. And so, what happens? How would you know if you're one of these people who doesn't have very strong critical thinking skills or isn't using critical thinking in their daily life? How do you know? It's because your every decision is guided by your feelings, or most of your decisions are guided by your feelings. You just feel a certain way and then you do that. Your every decision is guided by your feelings. This can be so extreme. I have one client, in fact, she would be classified as having borderline personality disorder, but a trauma survivor nonetheless. She's gone through very extreme trauma in her life. Her every decision is guided by her feelings. This is so reliable that she will be guided by her feelings that when she sets up an appointment with me, it is a guarantee that she will not keep the appointment. Because when she sets up the appointment, she feels like doing an appointment. By the time it comes time for the appointment, she will not do the appointment. It is a guarantee. She will be late. She will be stranded somewhere. She will be in some weird situation. She will be not feeling it. She will be feeling sick. Her every decision guided by the feelings. Therefore, she doesn't have the ability to keep an appointment. She also doesn't have the ability to break her trauma bond to her toxic sociopathic ex. And so she keeps going back with him, and then she keeps ending up back in the hospital. Why does she keep getting beat up by the same guy? It's lack of critical thinking skills. Why does she have a lack of critical thinking skills? Because what she knows how to do is to survive. And what she's relied on to survive is her gut, her feelings, her intuition. So that's all she knows how to follow. It's all she knows how to follow. This is why she's a survivor. Many people with borderline personality disorder do not survive. I know of some. The behavior is so reckless because you just keep doing without ever learning from the consequences, the same things that get you in trouble. You can only cheat death so many times. These people have cheated death dozens of times. Eventually, it catches up with you. Life is fragile. And you get hit or struck in the wrong way by that toxic ex, or that drinking got out of control, or the STDs that you caught got too extreme, or the whatever, the extreme behavior, your driving was too erratic, and eventually you don't survive. And we are at your funeral. Most of you in this class aren't that extreme, but this is still your story. If you don't get extreme thinking under control, feelings based decision making under control, your every decision needs to be made using critical thinking. That's the cerebral cortex, not feelings based thinking, which is that little tiny thing in the back of the head on top of the brain stem, the little amygdala, the animal brain. You don't want to follow the smallest part of your brain. That doesn't make sense. It's not a good strategy for life. And so, whereas many of you will not necessarily die because maybe your behavior is not that reckless, you will find yourself in the hospital, either mental or physical. You will find yourself on medications. You will find yourself with destroyed relationships. You will find yourself in anxiety and depression, low self worth, low self esteem, because you also are not quite thinking critically, but you're just following the urge of the feelings. And as a result, you don't achieve your goals, you don't achieve your dreams, you do end up in jail. Right. One woman said, I got so mad, so angry. She took my whole class, my whole course, and everything. And then she decided to follow her feelings. And then she took a violent retaliation against her ex. And then she ended up in jail. What? We don't have to do this. We have power. as humans. We're created with power, with intellect. If you don't use your intellect, then yeah, you're going to end up in some place that's beneath your full potential. And we don't want that. So let's heal right now. Let's heal right now so we don't end up in the hospital, in jail, or worse. Let's fix it right now. So how do we develop this critical thinking skills? And what the heck is nuance? And why do I keep saying nuance? What is that? So nuance is defined as um, your ability to process subtle shades of meaning and expression. That's nuance. Subtle shades of meaning and expression. Subtle shades. Hmm. It's really the opposite of black and white. Subtle shades. The world is really in subtle shades. Remember what I said earlier? There is no such thing as a right or wrong decision. Think about that. You might not have ever taken the time to really process it. So try to challenge that in your head. Every decision is subtle shades of what will be more advantageous or less advantageous. If you ever had a hard time making a decision because you felt like you were darned if you do, darned if you don't, welcome to adulthood. Welcome to real life. That is the way the universe really is. If you've ever felt like you were darned if you do, darned if you don't, you are now processing how life really is, at least partially, because every decision is that way. If there's anything I want, I will have to pay something for that. There will always be a loss. There will always be something given, some pain that comes with any pleasure that I'm going for. Until you understand that, you're going through life thinking, there's got to be a right decision. What's the right thing to do? And then you're asking everyone else to make decisions for you, and you're following the pleasure sensors of your body, thinking that that's like some sort of internal Jiminy Cricket. No, you need to pause. You need to think. You need to analyze because either way, there's going to be a loss suffered. So you have to analyze which loss will be either minimal or worth the loss, the potential risk of loss for what I gain in the situation. So you're weighing two things against each other, and then you're choosing what's more advantageous. You're choosing what's more beneficial. This is how we make decisions, not according to how we feel. Let me give you an example. So if I decide, oh, I like to go to school to get a certification. Okay, great. Should I do that based on how I feel? Am I feeling it? What does my gut tell me? What does my gut tell me? No, the gut's going to tell me something different on different days. It's chemicals. Did I eat that day? Did I just watch a really inspiring movie? Did I just hear something? Am I scared? My gut is going to lead me differently every day. That's not how I can best make the decision. I best make the decision by analyzing, okay, well, option one, let's make it binary. I got two choices. Option one is that I don't go for the certification. Option two is I do go for it. Okay, is there a loss either way? Yeah, if I don't go for it, I don't get the certification. I do go for it. I got to spend time. I got to spend money. Okay, hmm. Let me gather the data. What will be the benefits of having the certification? What will really be the repercussions of not having the certification versus the cost? Now I need to analyze, right? I might ask other people not to make the decision, but to tell me what the benefits were for them. Did that work out for them? I'm investigating to gather more data on the situation. Does that make sense? Now I can make a decision for me. That's right for me. There's no point on me asking my mom because she's not me. She doesn't have to live with my decisions. I have to make the decision based on not right and wrong. but analyzing all the nuance, all the subtle shades, and say, I think ultimately this has the most benefit for me. And then I make that decision. Does that make sense? So what are some of the data points that we have to consider? So for your notes, please learn about some of the data points in decision making, okay? Because you have to make 30,000 decisions per day. 30,000 decisions per day. If you're not good at this, then you're not good at life because life is a bunch of decision making. And I want you to have the skills so that you can say, I'm actually good at this thing. And you develop that skill through practice. Okay. So here's how we do this. Critical thinking requires that we gather data. So one of the thing that we have to do is future modeling. What is future modeling? Future modeling is one of the most important pieces of intelligence because what we're creating is a model of the future to see, hey, how would this work out if we were to go down this road? It's a fancy term for using your imagination to think, how would this go if I got to this destination? That's future modeling, right? So if I think, man, I'd really like to go and smack that person in the face, future modeling means I'll sit here for a second and imagine it. Imagine me doing it. Okay, good. Now I'm done. And I smacked them. Now, what could occur as a result? Well, they could retaliate, or I could just get in trouble for breaking the law and I could go to jail. Hmm. Hmm. As I start to model this future model, suddenly this idea is not sounding so good. That's future modeling. Just imagine in your head what would happen if we were to go down that road. If I were to buy this car when I can't afford it, where could I find myself several months or years down the line? That's future modeling. Okay. That's one thing. Write that in your notes. Future modeling. Another data point, recalling past patterns. Recalling past patterns. What tends to happen in the past if I do the same thing? When I keep going back to my toxic ex, I end up in the hospital sometime within 2 months of being back with him. Based on the past patterns, it would appear that it would be not an advantageous or the most advantageous decision for me to put myself back in the same room. My feelings told me that I should slap a person. My feelings told me I should go back with my toxic ex. But when I analyze and use critical thinking, future modeling, past pattern recognition, I start to come to a different conclusion. Let's say I think, boy, I'd really like to watch this show on Netflix alone the next episode that me and my wife have been watching together. I want to watch the next episode of the show that me and my wife have been watching together. Now, let me just pause for a second. Based on past pattern recognition, would my wife like it if I watched the next episode by myself without her? Is this something she tends to like? She tends to appreciate? How does she tend to respond? Right? Now that I bring in this data point, I start to realize this might not be a good strategy if I want to have a good, peaceful evening. Maybe it would make sense for me to just wait a couple hours for her to get off work and us to do this together and me to find something else that I can do with my time right now, rather than watching our favorite show together. Wow. All of a sudden, we're making wiser decisions when we bring in future modeling, past pattern recognition. What else? Present circumstances. Wow, we got future, we got past. Another data point. What is our present circumstances? I can buy the car, but just not right now because the present circumstances is I only have $150 in my account. What's the present circumstances? We got to analyze where we actually are at the moment, what we actually have, what we actually know, what we can do, what are our resources. So write that down. We got to consider present circumstances. We got future modeling, past pattern, present circumstances. What else do we got to analyze when we make a decision? Where else can we grab some data? Your feelings. What? I thought we're not supposed to follow the feelings. You're not. Your feelings are just one data point to consider. Your feelings are one data point, though, to consider. You must consider your feelings. Imagine if you're thinking, hey, maybe I should go and have dinner with my family tonight, my mom and dad and all them. Consider your feelings. How do you typically feel when you go have dinner with your mom and dad? Do you feel withdrawn? Do you feel cranky? Do you feel irritable, angry? Do you feel low self-worth? Do you feel overlooked and neglected? Those feelings matter. So we're not going to follow the feelings, but we're going to listen to them. We're going to analyze them. We're going to hear what they're saying so we can take it down as another data point. So write that in your notes. We got to consider the feelings, future model, past patterns, present circumstances, our feelings. What else? How about the other person's feelings? Yeah. Do we actually know what the other person's feeling? No. You don't know other people's feelings, but you can make really good educated guesses, can't you? Based on past patterns, based on how you would feel. That's called empathy. Empathy is our projection or our imagination of what we think another person might feel. So now we're bringing that into the mix. Okay, I was thinking about telling my husband that I think he's less of a man than my ex, but then when I think about the way that that might make him feel, or how I might feel if I were in that situation, I think maybe that's not a good thing to say to him. Maybe I won't do that. Maybe that's the less advantageous course if I want to have a good evening. Finally, you put it all together and you weigh it out into consideration. We think about the past patterns, we think about the present, we think about the future, computing. And you can literally do the weight method. I'm sure I have videos that talk about the weight method where I'm actually giving number weight assignments to each of the data points on both sides. So I can actually come up with a number to help me see which one really weighs more. But that's critical thinking. Your job now, you can do it in your head. You don't have to do it on a piece of paper with it every decision, but sometimes you might use pen and paper, but you got to figure out now which is really gonna weigh more in this situation, which one for me is going to be the most beneficial. And sometimes it's like neck and neck. You got to take a guess. You gotta say, think, I think this is going to be the most beneficial. So I'm going to go for it. When you make your decision and you stick with it, congratulations. As long as you used analytical thinking, you've done the best you could. That's good leadership, parent of the self. All that makes sense? Good. I'm glad to hear it.